This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Dr. Mariah White, host of Your Life Matters, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Your Life Matters, where we talk about dreaming big and dreaming bold to reach your wildest dreams in both your health and your happiness. A new show comes out every single Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Your Life Matters. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beauties Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. I'm Emily, and I'm here today with Elisabeth, Lindsay, and our guest Dave Bobke, and we're here to talk nerdy to you. So first, let's have Dave just tell us a little bit about himself. He's also in the broadcasting world. So Dave, what can you tell us about yourself there?
Well, hello ladies, how are you today?
Oh, we're just peachy.
Fantastic. Well, I'm known as Dave's Show over on the Greg and Dave Show, which sadly is inactive here on Public House Media, but people can still go back and listen to old episodes. And I'm sort of all over Public House Media in one way or another, doing editing or getting yelled at by Baxter or one thing or another. And I'm here today to try to continue my work towards a hostile takeover of the network. So,
all right,
I see.
Yeah.
From
I
the
didn't
outside,
know that was the master plan, but okay.
I mean, maybe it's been in subtle undertones in the Greg and Dave Show. I don't know.
Yeah, Mrs. Bale is just a cover.
What is the Greg and Dave Show about?
The Greg and Dave Show was about a half hour, and
okay.
we talked about weird stories in the news that we found, and oddly enough, the Greg went away for a while because he had other things to attend to, and our friend 15% More Dante came on, and then I kind of got busy with other stuff, and being that I usually ended up editing the episode, that was kind of an issue,
Sure.
not being able to edit or record or do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But we're happy that you have episodes that you can go back and listen to, though, because they have been entertaining from what I've heard. So I have listened to several of them, and they're entertaining. Thank you, Dave, for introducing yourself. We are very happy to have you on with us today. And so if you're into sci-fi like us listeners, that's probably one of the reasons you listen to the show, but you probably might also wonder about the technology that exists in sci-fi worlds. Like, how close is our current technology to achieving some of these gadgets that we see in the shows and movies that we all know and love? Are they even possible? Are they, based on our current research, can we even get to that point? I mean, there's going to be obvious assumptions from the past that by now we've had flying cars and teleporters. I mean, everyone remembers Back to the Future. So, but what if some of these things aren't so far away after all? Each of us has looked up some of our favorite tech from our favorite sci-fi worlds, and we're going to give you the lowdown on some of where these stand in real science today.
This episode is brought to you by Squadcast. As you guys know, we've been using them for the past couple of months, and it really streamlines recording our episodes remotely. We are all over the United States, so it's really cool that we're able to record together. With this simple browser-based tool, we can log in wherever we are and record, and the files are simply downloaded to the host computer. If you're interested in recording, Squadcast has a free 14-day trial to give it a whirl to see if it's for you. Just go to squadcast.fm and sign up.
All right, so Dave, since you are the guests get to go first, and we'd love to hear what tech you're going to be talking about.
I'm talking about arguably my favorite piece of tech that I am most looking forward to, should the day ever come where we get it. Being a big Star Trek The Next Generation fan, I think the holodeck is just about the coolest darn thing ever. And I think we've all imagined what we would do in a holodeck on some level. And doing a little bit of research on the holodeck technology, we see the first time in the Star Trek universe they really, harked on this and tried to make this a plot point was in The Next Generation, in the first episode. It's brought up again several times in Season 1. The Bynars try to improve the holodeck, and Riker not only goes to the holodeck and is immersed in a jazz club in New Orleans, but he actually meets a woman there named Minuet and falls in love with her, which we learn in a future episode, which we won't get to now. Trying not to geek out on Next Generation, failing miserably so far. But there's, that episode, there's the big goodbye, where we learn that holograms can exist in the holodeck, that there are safety protocols, and if the holograms try to leave the holodeck, they just sort of vaporize and go away. And the holodeck is just so stinking awesome because he can go anywhere, anytime, and just you're completely surrounded by it. The episode Elementary Dear Data, which is probably...
I love that one.
It's pretty much one of the greatest things ever. They have Data acting as Sherlock Holmes and Geordi as Watson, and it feels like you're watching Sherlock Holmes and Watson and Moriarty and the whole 9 yards, and they're completely immersed.
I want to be a little naive here. Can you explain to me how the holodeck is different than virtual reality?
Why, yes, I can. Because virtual reality is kind of one of the closest things we seem to have to a holodeck right now. Whereas, we've got the VR headset. I don't know if you guys have gotten to try one of those at all. I haven't, so. Anybody? Nope?
No.
I haven't. No.
Awkward silence, taking it as a no.
Right.
But yeah, the VR headset is fantastic for the visual side of things, but it still lacks a dimension of touch. Or as I've learned, it's called haptic feedback. A sort of sensation of force where you can actually reach out and feel something. So we're still missing that with virtual reality. And then, of course, moving around, you're kind of still stuck within the dimensions of whatever room you're in. For example, the room that I'm recording in, it's, 6 feet by 5 feet or something like that. It's not very big. So if I put on a VR headset and I try to walk around with it on, I'm going to bump into walls almost immediately. Not a problem on the holodeck. But this is sort of playing into another problem, which I'll come back to with the holodeck. But I think the holodeck is just so... It's such a lofty goal to think that we could have a holodeck in our lifetime. I guess because, again, virtual reality, it's great for the visual. We've got augmented reality, which gives you a little more of a feeling that you can actually participate in something. You feel like you're actually picking something up, although I think you actually are kind of holding an object, or at least it gives you a reasonable facsimile of holding something, and you can actually throw a wrench across a room. I've seen videos of people with augmented reality kind of interacting that way, but it's still not quite... you're still not actually picking up a wrench. You're still just pretending to pick up a wrench, more or less. So we're still having this issue of matter actually being there. And I think for the holodeck rather, when they go in there and they're interacting with, say a building, they can actually reach out and feel a building, and it feels like a building. And if they punch the building, it's going to hurt their hand. Because safety protocols only go so far. If you want to be an idiot, the holodeck's not going to protect you from that. If you run in front of a car, the car is going to hit you, and it's probably going to hurt a little bit, but hopefully it won't kill you. But anyway, I digress from that point. But it seems like those are a couple of the issues right now, is the physical side of things. Not to mention interaction. We've got Siri, we've got Alexa, etc. Microsoft Sam still can't follow what I'm saying now. So even if we get to a point where we've got the beginnings of an actual holodeck, if we want to be able to interact with people, they still have to be able to understand what we're saying. And we're still working on programs along that line so that, Riker and Minuet, as an example, Minuet knew exactly what Riker was talking about. She could even be a little intuitive and know exactly what Riker's thinking and what Riker wants her to say and that kind of thing. And so I think that's another dimension we got to work on. And frankly, I've not heard this one addressed, but what about the floor? I've never understood that. The holodeck has certain dimensions, like the room that I'm recording in, and there's only so far you can walk. Again, in Elementary Dear Data, they're walking all over the streets, they're sneaking through back alleys, and they never once bump into a wall. So I always wonder, are the walls in the holodeck like a gigantic treadmill that they keep kind of moving along so that you stay kind of toward the center of the room, or how exactly does that work?
I wondered that too, because one of my own theories, the treadmill theory, is good too. I actually hadn't thought of that, but another one of my theories was that part of the holodeck's kind of function was kind of as an illusion. So you might have thought that, oh, you're running or you're, walking at this certain pace, but in reality, the rate that everything is moving, you're actually walking very, very slow, so that by the time you would actually reach the wall, you're actually reaching the very, the end borders of whatever environment you've picked. If that makes sense.
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. So your surroundings, the images of your surroundings are moving at a certain pace, and so it tricks your mind into thinking that you're moving at that pace.
Yeah.
I see.
I always kind of thought that it was more of an anti-gravity structure that at the time the tech probably wasn't really there to lift them up and have them suspended, but kind of that sort of thing. I was very young, so I never really thought about it that much.
So basically they would walk up on the walls and then up on the ceiling, thinking that they're just still on the floor.
Oh, I see.
Walking all around the room.
Well, since they're on a spaceship, maybe they suspend a certain percentage of the gravity that's in the room.
When you're on the holodeck, your body is lifted up, and so you are making all those movements because of the illusion of where you are, as opposed to actually walking on a surface. You have the illusion of walking on a surface, but you're not.
That could be
suspended.
I don't know.
Was that addressed at all in any of your research, Dave?
No, in my admittedly somewhat limited research, I wasn't finding much of anything. Although, as you ladies were talking, I just thought, well, what if you were trying to run in place? Would the programming think you were actually trying to run somewhere, or would you actually just run in place?
Good question.
would the Running Man dance be banned in the holodeck? That's what I really want to know.
We might know in the future, but we don't know right now.
Yes, this is one thing I may continue to research after the podcast, because the floor in the holodeck just fascinates me. When it comes to games and fantasy, floors, I believe, have been the bane of human existence since the game Ultima 3 for the PC, where the floor literally tries to kill you.
Oh boy.
And there's video out there if anybody wants to check it out. But yeah, the floor actually tries to kill you in the game. So I'm suspicious of floors in general. and that's really what I'm here to talk about.
After an experience like that, I can understand.
So yeah, holodeck technology, basically, it seems like it's a long way off. I'm sorry to say that I don't think we're going to have a holodeck in our lifetime. I think if we do, it's going to be way towards the tail end. And I never rule it out that it could happen because, I'm sure my parents didn't believe a lot of the technology that's out there now. And couldn't have imagined that it would happen back when they were in their 20s or what have you. But we've got some interesting ideas for how to make things happen. I was reading about ultrasound waves, which are too high for us to hear, but we can feel it. Sort of like when you've got a car peeling down the street, blasting some DMX or Ja Rule or something, and you kind of feel it before you hear it a little bit.
Yeah.
That sort of a thing. And if we can concentrate ultrasound waves the right way, apparently we could reach out and sort of feel them and think we're feeling an object. but it would only work to a certain extent. If you press a little bit harder, you're going to press through it. So it's like reaching out, thinking you're touching a car, but you press a little bit more and your hand goes into the car and kind of ruins the illusion.
So kind of like
there's
a airwave oobleck kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an invisible oobleck.
Yeah. And,
yeah.
Invisible.
Invisible. Gesundheit.
I like it.
And the last thing I have here was apparently somebody lined a box with transducers to make a 3D hologram, which looks pretty cool, but it's one of those things where they made it. It sounded like they made it just to make it, just to say, "Hey,
Sure.
we made this. We made a thing. Isn't it cool?"
Hey guys, look how cool it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still quite a ways off from having a whole holodeck. It's just not practical enough to actually try to put enough of them together in the right way to make that actually work.
Mm-hmm. Well, and at the Olympic ceremonies in Korea this past winter, they used holographic technology to show something, like their visual, whatever it was. And it was really, really cool looking, but I don't know exactly how they did it because they'd have to project, from basically an entire circle to the center, I would think. I don't know. Anywho, yes, exactly. They figured something really cool out. And Korea has always been kind of a forerunner in technology like that. So, I mean, maybe they've got some kind of something. I don't know. I'm not saying that Korea's got secrets to of holodecks that they're keeping from the rest of the world.
Okay, I'll say it.
Okay, you say it.
Korea's got holodecks. They're keeping it from the rest of the world. There, I said it.
But the concept of the holodeck was also addressed in like Ready Player One too. When you think about their software and their virtual reality world, I can't remember the name of it at this exact time. But that also
they all
had
had haptic suits.
And,
that was the thing. To go in the Oasis in Ready Player One. Yes, the Oasis. That's
the
when
Oasis.
as soon as Dave mentioned haptics, I'm like, oh yeah, like in Ready Player One. Yeah, and so they had these suits that they would wear, and that's how they would enter their virtual reality. And it was basically like you put your headset on and you're like in an endless holodeck.
Right. And there was those different layers too. You saw the people
and the gloves.
who had just the headsets, and then the tech went up from that when they had the gloves,
and then the
omnidirectional
omnidirectional treadmill and everything like that.
I think we are on our way, but I definitely think there's
a holodeck
quite a
room
lot of things
versus what's in Ready Player One seem like two very different things. Because a holodeck room, you just go in as you are. You don't need a headset. You don't need any equipment. You just go in and you do it, and then it's really awesome. I think if we wanted to do a holodeck room, I think we've got a lot of work to do. All right. Well, thank you, Dave, for sharing that. I learned a lot about all of that goes into thinking about holodecks, so it's good. I'm going to go next because I'm super excited about mine, and it is the Stargate system. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that I love the series Stargate, SG-1, Atlantis, the movie that started it all, and the whole basis is the Stargate system. So I want to quick explain what that is. Stargates were something created and distributed by a race of aliens called the Ancients, and they had these Stargates across a bunch of different galaxies on different planets in those galaxies. And basically what a Stargate is a big ring, and it has symbols all around it that are they'll create a coordinate to use, and what you'll do is basically dial the phone number to whatever planet you'd like to travel to, and then when you dial that number using the symbols, you'll use a dial home device, is what they call it in the show. I think it's a really lame name, but they have so many devices in Stargate, so everything's a device in Stargate. But so it's called a DHD for short. And so you push the buttons in a certain sequence and you go to a certain planet basically within a couple of seconds. And the concept is that you enter one side of a wormhole and come out on the other side, but it's a pre-planned destination, and it doesn't take you anywhere in time. It only goes for location. And what would be crazy is if we could get this figured out to like, I mean, we could first do it just on Earth, and that would make, that would be amazing for transportation. But something like this, once we actually get to other planets or to the moon and that sort of thing, we could put stargates, for lack of a better term, on there, and we wouldn't have to use spaceships anymore, So, I mean, we could for an emergency if the Stargate broke down or whatever, we would need to. But, once we have these set up and if they're stable enough, we could effectively, cut down months of travel time, years of travel time, possibly, and could just, it would be awesome. Now, the trick is that, like I mentioned, Stargates work because of wormholes. Now, wormholes up to this point are a theoretical concept, also known as the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which you can kind of picture as a big tunnel with, one end is really wide and then it kind of slurps you really skinny in the middle and you come out on the other end. Not unlike how the TARDIS travels through time and space as well. Similar to that. However, a Stargate has an event horizon, which is the beginning of the wormhole on one Stargate, and then the end of the wormhole is on the other Stargate. So there are two very specific points, a beginning and an end. The TARDIS kind of just travels willy-nilly, and the Doctor says when it stops. So that's how Stargates would differ, as they are very set locations. And so the thing with the wormhole is that it comes from the fact that nothing is really perfectly flat or solid. If you look really, really closely at anything, you're going to find holes and imperfections in the surface and in the texture. And it's also true in 3 dimensions of physical space, but it's also true for the 4th dimension of time, so to say. And so there are tiny crevices, wrinkles, and voids in time as well. It's all wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Okay. And if you get down to the smallest scales, smaller than atoms, we get to the quantum level, also known as the quantum foam. And this is supposedly where wormholes could exist. Now, the issue here is that we are a lot bigger than the quantum level. We are actually much, much larger than atoms. We are much, much larger than molecules. We are thousands and billions of molecules together. So we're too big to fit through where wormholes exist. But some scientists think it might be possible to actually capture a wormhole and make it many trillions of times bigger, possibly, and make it big enough for a human or maybe even a spaceship to go through. Theoretically, a time tunnel or a wormhole could do that. Now, a big problem is we would, first of all, need to figure out how to specifically have a starting and ending point for these wormholes. And we would have to figure out whether we're traveling just through space, or if we're traveling through time and space at the same time, or if we're just traveling through time to the same exact location. So we've got a lot of variables to kind of figure out here. And theoretically, there's the issue of possibly traveling back in time by accident and then causing this paradox, as we talked about in our time travel episode. We could cause something like the grandfather paradox to take place, and then that would violate a fundamental rule of governing the entire universe, that cause happens before effect, rather than, or that cause happens before effect, or that effect happens before the cause. Yeah, that effects would happen before the cause, and then that would cause feedback in the fabric of time, essentially, and then that would break the wormhole, and then everything would be broken. So
that sounds bad.
That's really bad. So right now, wormholes that we can figure out are too small. We don't know enough about the beginning and ending points of the wormholes, whether they are going to a specific location or whether they are going to a certain time, or if they're just kind of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Right now, we don't know. So it's very sciencey.
I've always had an issue with time travel, but I feel like the idea of transportation or teleportation would be okay. But for some reason, with all of the sizing and things that you were just talking about, I was brought to the idea of like Willy Wonka and Smell-O-Vision, where my TV got shrunk down because of the whatever they did to him in that device. And I feel like that's kind of
I
what
understand
might
that
happen
fear.
with
Like
this.
that would not be great. We figured out how to make you real small so you fit in the wormhole.
If you could fit in it, it'd be a very fun diet plan. You know, you'd be a lot.
Yeah. Right? It's like there was that one movie, wasn't it, that where everybody decided to like be mini sized and you had to undergo the procedure. I forget. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't either. Does anybody remember what it's called?
Yeah.
Was Matt Damon in it?
Yes. Yeah, Matt Damon. And I don't remember what the movie was called, but it would be like that, where you get shrunk down. It's like, oh, good, now you fit in the wormhole. But when you come out on the other side, you're still small. Yeah. I mean, I think that was the concept behind the movie from what I gathered from the trailer. But that doesn't really solve our get bigger on the other side of the wormhole issue.
Ooh, Downsizing. That was the name of the movie.
Yes. Downsizing. Thank you, Dave. That was great.
Yes, that's what I'm here for.
Okay.
I kept thinking supersize me. I'm like, that's the opposite of what we wanted to do here. That's definitely about a different thing.
Definitely the opposite.
So yeah, wormholes, it seems like right now, the science and physics and mathematics behind wormholes cause more problems than they solve.
Yeah, I have to admit, though, that sounds better. Me shrinking down to the wormhole size rather than when you were saying make the wormhole
Enlarging
bigger.
it.
Yeah. Because I just, for whatever reason, my head immediately brought up the image of, like, I've never given birth, but I was just thinking, instead of pushing a baby out, we're going to try to push a fully loaded semi-truck.
Oh,
but we're going to make you bigger, so it won't be a problem. Like, no, you know what? That doesn't sound like that's going to work.
Yes. I think all three of us ladies would understand that.
It hurts me just thinking about it. Oh,
yes.
Moving on from that subject, I have one of my favorite technologies. My favorite is the holodeck because as a gamer, that is like my ultimate dream to just completely immerse myself in a world. But if I had to choose a second one, it would definitely be the Babelfish from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Because I mean, then I could just watch anime and I would never have to worry about reading subtitles. I could just pull it up and there you go.
Right there. That's reason enough.
Yes. I have something called dyscalculia, which is a learning disorder. And one of the things it affects is the ability to learn and retain a different language. And I'm trying really hard this time to learn German and French, but it's really, really hard.
That's
someone
awesome.
with dyscalculia to actually learn and retain that language. But, you know, in light of that, something like the Babelfish would be amazing. So I took this description directly from the guide itself, and it states, the Babelfish is a small, yellow, leech-like, and probably the oddest thing in the universe. It feeds on brainwave energy received not from its own carrier, but from those around it. It absorbs all unconscious mental frequencies from this brainwave energy to nourish itself with, and it then excretes into the mind of its carrier a telepathic matrix formed by combining the conscious thought frequencies with nerve signals picked up from the speech centers of the brain which has supplied them. The practical upshot of all of this is that if you stick a Babelfish in your ear, you can instantly understand anything said to you in any form of language. The speech patterns you actually hear decode the brainwave matrix, which has been fed into your mind by your Babelfish. So basically, like, it picks up on the conversation that's happening around you. It more or less eats that energy, and it basically relays to you what is being said in a way that you can understand.
That's crazy awesome. I had never heard that explanation before. I've seen Hitchhiker maybe a couple times, but I never really understood how that worked. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's basically like how it works. I think they said at least a little bit of that excerpt in the movie. I'm not sure if they did the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I've read the book, so that's, you know, I got to read the whole thing.
The whole spiel. Yes.
And yeah, so it's you know, basically that's how it works is it does the energies and giving you that translation basically instantly, and in the voice that whoever's speaking is speaking with. Now, obviously, we don't have anything exactly like that, but we do have something that works pretty similarly. Not the same way exactly, but it basically has almost the same effect. I mean, obviously, we do have like stuff like Google Translate and stuff like that. And I know some social media platforms do offer like post translations, but there is a tech gadget that out there that is available from a place called Waverly Labs. They have made both an app and a product that is basically looks kind of like a little.
Oh, is it that thing that's like a little earbud? I think I've seen this before.
Yeah, and it fits in your ear, and it basically functions as a translator. It currently has 15 languages and 42 dialects, and I'm sure with time they'll be adding more. And it also boasts what they say is a natural sounding male and female voices. So, obviously when somebody is talking, you don't get their voice, you get, another voice in your ear telling you what they're saying. And I guess you can switch between like male and female for that. But yeah, that's basically how it will work. It doesn't take their own voice, but it basically translates what they're saying and gives it to you kind of, I guess, in that real time. Now, the product is quite pricey right now. I just checked on their website today and at the time that we're recording this. And right now it is discounted at $200.
Okay.
So little much just for, some translating. I mean, maybe if, you're going to be doing a lot of traveling and you just don't have time to pick up, 5 different languages, maybe it could be a good investment.
Or hire your own translator per day. That's, might be worth it, but
for right now,
I can definitely see the use of it. Like if you're a business
that's
person.
true. Like something like that. I wonder if you could write it off as like a business expense.
You probably could if you use it for business. I would think so. That's actually pretty cool.
But yeah, I think personally I'll just stick to Google Translate and I'll just keep doing my Duolingo lessons.
Fair enough.
$200 is just a little much for something like that.
Well, personally, I'm studying the Temerian language right now, so if it could translate Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra for me, it'd be worth it just for that.
What are those? Hold on.
I'm not
what
sure.
Are those?
It's a Star Trek The Next Generation thing. There's an episode where the universal translator won't work with a certain species because they keep saying like Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Yeah, they like speak in metaphor and it takes them forever to figure that out. And then once Picard's on board with it.
But that is like the upshot of, something like the Babelfish, because I mean obviously the tech gadget from Waverly Labs, that is limited by the languages that they've programmed into it. But the Babelfish just works. It just takes that brainwave energy and it just gives it to you. It doesn't need to be pre-programmed.
That is really cool.
So, I mean, obviously this, Waverly Labs has made something that works for today, but, in working similarly to the Babelfish, it doesn't quite do it in the same way because that exact tech, obviously is not, we're not anywhere near that. But I mean, we're about as close as we're going to get for today.
Yeah, for today.
I'll be honest. The idea of a thing crawling into my ear and then being able to translate does kind of freak me out, but also sound really cool at the same time.
Yeah. Like I got a thing about leeches, so like that aspect really freaks me out, that it kind of like gets in your ear like that. Like it makes me think of a leech. But other than that, like the effects of it is really cool as long as it has no negative effects. Like that's fancy.
Well, moving on, I wanted to talk about my favorite gizmo or gadget from Doctor Who. So I wanted to talk real briefly about the sonic screwdriver. So we know that it can do a lot of things. It can unlock or lock a door, burn and cut substances, disarm weapons and electronics. It's been used as a flashlight. It's been reconfigured into sunglasses, detect and interpret signals, track alien life. dampers, geolocation, all kinds of stuff. Essentially, it did start out as a screwdriver, a sonic screwdriver. Several doctors have said, "Oh, it makes noise. It's sonic." But the idea behind it is pretty interesting. They have actually made a sonic screwdriver. The logistics of it are a little difficult. They haven't really made a little screwdriver. They're usually quite large. And the idea is that you have two or more beams of sound, basically, manipulating a object. And they have actually managed to do that, which I think is really cool. And they've been using sound to deliver drugs, among other things. What I think is really cool was they had, at first, they were using sound in, not at first, but the coolest stuff that I've read is that they were using sound to like minimize a tumor in the brain. They were using sound to decrease the size of the tumor that way, but now they can do it without the devices being put on the head of the patient. So come on, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that they use like, sound to like break up kidney stones.
It's sort of the same concept as an actual sonic screwdriver. Now, having a device that can do all of the stuff that the doctor does with it,
yeah,
it's not terribly possible. I mean, let's be serious, but an actual using sound to do things is definitely something that's happened. And in that effect as well, I guess I just really wanted to look at gizmos and gadgets because I also looked up lightsabers. And with lightsabers, there's a lot of reverse engineering going on, where scientists and theorists, if that's a word, are talking about what a lightsaber would need to, what you would need to do in order to make a lightsaber. So they've basically narrowed it down to plasma and how to take plasma and contain it. And they now have a way to manipulate photons that can remember a shape. So you can contain the plasma by making the photons remember the shape that you put them in.
Photons as a container for the plasma.
Right.
Okay, makes sense.
Yes. Right. Exactly. So because they would remember it, and then it would be strong enough to contain the plasma, I guess.
So it's like one of those like glass orb things that you put your hand on, and you see all the plasma things coming on your fingers, but instead of glass, it's photons.
Correct. So cool. It would still be able to, and the heat of that would still have the effect of the lightsaber. So they know plasma has to be ultra hot because the lightsabers have been used to, dismember, cauterize, and open doors or cut giant holes in doors as well. So that kind of thing. And of course, you can't create energy or destroy it. So you would have to be able to contain that kind of thing in something that a Jedi, would be able to hold. So that's really difficult because, of course, the Star Wars universe has all of these different materials that you're able to use to make a lightsaber, but not necessarily anything that we have here on Earth or have found at this point in time. I think the closest they got was
radium.
Radium,
it's an element.
Something like
I can
that.
tell you that.
But I know that I have the wrong element, but it's some element that is terribly unstable.
Yeah,
and
radium.
Not something you really want to. Was it radium? It might
be.
It is.
It's a radioactive element. That's why it's called radium.
Those of you listening for quite some time, you may have noticed that our sound has changed a little bit. We now have someone who's been editing our podcasts for you for your listening pleasure. And I just wanted to really quick let everyone know how much we appreciate him. His name is Vic Walter, and he's been making us sound better for you for about a month or so now, and we're very, very thankful to him.
We call him the magician sometimes.
I guess he's like one of the top 4 editors we've got. I guess he's all right.
I mean, Dave's one of the top 4 editors we've got too. So
oh, thank you. Oh,
He has done it in the past a couple times, haven't you?
Yeah,
Dave?
once or twice, yeah.
But our editor actually left the network because he has other school obligations, and so Vic stepped in for us and has been doing a fantastic job. So we really, really appreciate him.
Indeed, he has.
All right. Anyway, thanks for getting nerdy with us today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed our sci-fi talk. Check out our Instagram. I know we have advertised this, but we recently changed the name of our Instagram to match that of Twitter, just so y'all wouldn't get confused. So our new Instagram handle is Beauties_Canons. That's Beauties_Canons. And you can go there. And if there was a certain topic that maybe we missed, just let us know on our Instagram, and maybe we can pick that up for a future topic. I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Emily.
And I'm, what was my name again? Dave. I'm Dave.
And I'm Lindsay. And thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.